My greedy mother-in-law tried to take my car by force. When I stopped her, she hit me hard with a hockey stick. I fell to the floor, stunned and in pain, while my husband just stood there, watching everything without saying a word. I felt a mix of anger and deep betrayal. That night, I made up my mind. I packed my bags, left the house, and decided to take back control of my life and fight for justice. The next morning, they woke up to a shocking surprise, something they never expected. My name is Anna, and I'm a 29-year-old business consultant living in Austin, Texas. On the surface, my life appeared perfect. I had a thriving career, earning $50,000 a month, and I lived in a comfortable home with my husband, Frank. To the outside world, we were a picture of success, a young, ambitious couple building a life together. But behind closed doors, the truth was far from ideal. My marriage was crumbling under the weight of unspoken frustrations, financial strain, and interference from Frank's manipulative mother, Martha. The love and partnership I had once cherished had faded into a cold, distant reality. Frank had lost his job 8 months ago, and while I initially didn't mind supporting us financially, things began to change. Instead of being grateful, Frank grew distant, spending more time away from home. Martha, who was always opinionated, became a permanent presence in our lives. Her influence was toxic, and her demands knew no bounds. My financial success, which should have been a source of pride, became the target of Martha's greed. She believed my income was hers to command, masking her relentless requests as family needs. From the outside, no one could have guessed the chaos brewing behind our front door. I had worked hard to achieve everything I had: a successful consulting business built from scratch, a respected reputation, and a stable life. But none of it seemed to matter to the people closest to me. The tension in my home was suffocating, and I felt increasingly alone. I knew I needed to take control, but at the time, I didn't realize just how far things would spiral before I reclaimed my life. The illusion of a perfect life was beginning to crack, and with it, my patience for the people who were determined to take advantage of me. 5 years ago, I met Frank at a corporate networking event. The night was filled with energy, professionals mingling, exchanging ideas, and discussing ambitions. Frank caught my eye with his charming smile and confident demeanor. We started talking, and within minutes, I felt a connection. He spoke passionately about his career goals and shared dreams of traveling the world and building a life filled with adventure. It felt like destiny. We began dating shortly after and quickly became inseparable. Frank seemed like the perfect partner, ambitious, supportive, and understanding. Together, we dreamed of achieving great things, building successful careers, and creating a future that reflected our shared goals. For 2 years, everything seemed to align perfectly, and I believed I had found my forever partner. 3 years ago, we got married. Our wedding was a beautiful celebration of love and commitment, attended by close friends and family. At the time, I was convinced that love and ambition would see us through any challenges. I felt unstoppable with Frank by my side, confident that we were a team ready to face life together. In the early days of our marriage, we supported each other through every challenge. I encouraged Frank in his career, and he cheered me on as I expanded my consulting business. We celebrated small victories together, like landing a new client or reaching personal milestones. I thought we shared an unshakable bond. But as time went on, cracks began to form. 8 months ago, Frank lost his job. I assured him it was a temporary setback and took on the financial burden without hesitation. I believed in his ability to bounce back and didn't mind stepping up while he found his footing. After all, I had built my career from scratch and knew the value of perseverance. What I didn't anticipate was the shift in Frank's behavior. He grew distant and detached, and the dreams we once shared felt like they were slipping away. Instead of growing closer during a difficult time, we started drifting apart, leaving me to carry the weight of our life alone. Frank's mother, Martha, entered our lives with an intensity I hadn't expected. At first, I thought her involvement was her way of being supportive during Frank's unemployment, but it quickly became clear that her presence was more about control and entitlement than care. Martha, in her late 50s, had a commanding personality that left little room for compromise. She started visiting frequently, often unannounced, inserting herself into every aspect of our lives. What began as occasional advice quickly turned into constant interference. She scrutinized everything: how I ran my household, how I spent my money, and even how I dressed. It wasn't long before the demands started. The first came as a casual request. "Anna, I've been feeling so stressed lately," she said one evening. "A spa retreat would do wonders for me. You don't mind helping out, do you? After all, we're family." Frank encouraged me to agree, saying it would keep her happy. Reluctantly, I gave in, thinking it was a one-time favor. I was wrong. Martha's requests escalated quickly. Designer clothes, extravagant parties, and even vacations for her friends became regular demands. She masked her greed with guilt-inducing comments like, "You're doing so well, Anna. Surely you can spare a little for family." I tried to set boundaries. I explained that I was already covering all the household expenses, the mortgage, utilities, groceries, and couldn't afford to indulge her whims. But Martha dismissed my concerns as selfishness. "What's the point of success if you can't share it with family?" she'd say with a pointed look. Frank, meanwhile, did nothing to intervene. He avoided confrontation, choosing instead to play the role of the peacekeeper. His silence only emboldened Martha, leaving me to fend off her relentless demands alone. What hurt the most wasn't the money. It was the growing realization that Frank didn't have my back. The partnership I thought we had was unraveling, replaced by a toxic dynamic that left me feeling isolated in my own home. I knew I had to draw a line. Martha's constant demands were draining, and I was tired of being treated like a personal bank. One evening, after she had asked for an expensive vacation for her friends, I sat down with her and Frank. I calmly explained that I was already managing all the household expenses and couldn't continue funding her indulgences. "Martha," I said, keeping my tone firm but respectful, "I'm happy to help when it's truly necessary, but I can't keep covering non-essential expenses. I've worked hard to build my business, and I need to prioritize our household." Her response was immediate and cutting. "You're being selfish, Anna," she snapped. "I've done so much for this family, and this is how you repay me? You don't understand the value of family." Frank, as always, sat silently, avoiding eye contact. His refusal to support me stung more than Martha's words. I turned to him, hoping for some acknowledgement of how unfair the situation was, but he only shrugged, as if the issue wasn't his concern. Martha wasn't done. Over the next few weeks, her guilt-inducing remarks grew more relentless. She would casually drop comments like, "It's a shame when family doesn't look out for each other," or "Money changes people. It makes them forget their roots." Despite my boundaries, Martha continued to test my patience. One evening, she made a shocking suggestion. "Anna," she said, her tone deceptively casual, "I need a car to get around, and yours is quite nice. Why don't you let me have it? You can always buy another one." I stared at her, stunned. My car wasn't just a vehicle, it was essential for my work and daily life. "I can't do that," I said, trying to stay composed. "I need my car for my business." Martha's face darkened. "You're just proving how selfish you are," she hissed. "You don't deserve the success you have." Her words cut deep, but it was Frank's silence that hurt the most. Once again, I was left standing alone, fighting a battle I never should have had to face. The demand for my car marked a new low. Martha's audacity seemed limitless, and I was done indulging her greed. Still, I tried to keep my composure. "Martha," I said firmly, "I've already explained that my car is essential for my work. It's not something I can give away." Her response was immediate and explosive. "You're being selfish," she shouted. After everything I've done for this family, you can't even give me a car? You don't deserve the life you have. I turned to Frank, desperate for support. Do you have anything to say about this? I asked, my voice shaking with frustration. He shifted uncomfortably in his seat, avoiding my gaze. Let's not make this a big deal, he muttered, his indifference cutting me like a knife. Before I could respond, Martha's anger boiled over. She stood abruptly and scanned the room, her eyes landing on a hockey stick leaning against the wall, a leftover from Frank's childhood. Without hesitation, she grabbed it and swung it at me with full force. The impact was sharp and searing. The stick struck the side of my head, and pain shot through my skull. I stumbled backward, clutching my head as tears blurred my vision. What is wrong with you? I gasped, struggling to steady myself. Martha's voice was filled with venom. You ungrateful brat, she screamed. You think you can hoard everything for yourself? You don't belong in this family. I looked at Frank, pleading silently for him to intervene, to defend me, to show some semblance of care. But he remained frozen, watching the chaos unfold as if he were a spectator at a show. In that moment, something inside me broke. I realized the man I had married was no longer my partner, but an enabler of the abuse I was enduring. That night, I made my decision. While Frank was out with friends, I packed my bags, ignoring the throbbing pain in my head. I left the house, tears streaming down my face, and drove straight to my parents' home. I knew I could never return. It was time to reclaim my life. When I arrived at my parents' house that night, my mother immediately noticed something was wrong. Her eyes widened in horror as she saw the swelling on the side of my head. Anna, what happened? She asked, her voice trembling. I broke down, recounting everything: Martha's escalating demands, the attack with the hockey stick, and Frank's refusal to defend me. My parents were furious and heartbroken. You need to see a doctor, my father insisted. This isn't just family drama. This is assault. The next morning, I visited a doctor who examined the injury and confirmed it was consistent with blunt force trauma. The official report and photographs of the bruise became the first pieces of evidence I would use to hold Martha accountable. I also contacted a lawyer, Sophia Carter, who came highly recommended for her sharp mind and compassionate approach. Sitting across from her in her office, I shared my story. She listened intently, her expression a mix of empathy and determination. Anna, Sophia said, this is not just about filing for divorce. What Martha did is a criminal act, and she needs to be held accountable. Frank's inaction only strengthens your case. She advised me to gather all possible evidence, including receipts showing Martha's financial exploitation, text messages documenting her demands, and any other proof of the emotional and physical abuse I had endured. With her guidance, I began piecing together a clear picture of the toxic environment I had endured for years. As I worked with Sophia to build my case, I felt a renewed sense of strength. For the first time in months, I wasn't reacting to Martha and Frank. I was taking action. The pain from the assault lingered, but so did my resolve. I wasn't just seeking justice for myself. I was reclaiming my dignity and independence. This wasn't about revenge. It was about ensuring that they couldn't hurt me or anyone else again. A few days later, while I was organizing the evidence with Sophia's help, my mother hesitantly called me from the living room. Anna, Frank, and Martha are here. They want to talk to you. I felt a surge of anger, but also a steely determination. I wasn't going to let them manipulate me again. Taking a deep breath, I stepped into the living room. Frank looked uncomfortable, his eyes avoiding mine, while Martha wore an expression of feigned remorse. Anna, Frank began, his voice low and hesitant. We're here to apologize. Mom knows she went too far. Martha nodded, her tone syrupy and insincere. I was under a lot of stress, Anna, she said, clasping her hands together dramatically. I shouldn't have acted that way, but we're family. Let's put this behind us and move on. I crossed my arms, keeping my voice calm but firm. You mean move past the fact that you physically assaulted me, Martha? Or the fact that you stood by and did nothing, Frank? Do you think an apology can erase what you've done? Frank's desperation started to show. Please, Anna, he said, his voice cracking. Let's not make this worse. What do you want? We'll do anything to make it right. Their sudden willingness to negotiate gave me an idea. If they were serious, I would ensure they paid for their actions, not just with apologies, but with something concrete. If you're serious, I said, meeting Frank's eyes, then transfer the house into my name. That's the only way I'll consider talking to you. Martha's mask slipped, and for a moment, her fury shone through. You're asking too much, she spat, but Frank, realizing they had no leverage, reluctantly agreed. Fine, he said through gritted teeth, we'll sign the papers. Their agreement felt like a small victory, but I wasn't naive. I knew this wasn't over. The house transfer would give me some control, but the real battle, seeking justice for what they'd done, was still ahead. For the first time, I felt the scales beginning to tip in my favor. A week after their reluctant agreement, Frank and Martha returned with the legal documents to transfer the house into my name. My lawyer, Sophia, meticulously reviewed every detail to ensure there were no loopholes. Once I signed the papers, the house was legally mine, a significant step toward reclaiming my independence. With the house secured, Sophia and I shifted focus to the criminal charges against Martha. The evidence was undeniable. The doctor's report, photographs of my injury, and Martha's threatening text messages sent after the assault. Frank's inaction during the incident only strengthened our case, proving the hostile environment I had endured. When the court date arrived, I walked into the courtroom with a mix of nerves and determination. Frank and Martha were seated at the defendant's table, their expressions ranging from indifference to barely concealed hostility. Martha's lawyer attempted to downplay the incident, framing it as a family misunderstanding fueled by stress. But the evidence painted a different story, one of greed, manipulation, and outright violence. Sophia's arguments were sharp and precise. She highlighted not only the physical assault, but also the financial exploitation and emotional abuse I had endured. This is not a misunderstanding, she told the judge firmly. This is a case of repeated abuse, culminating in a violent attack that could have caused serious harm. The judge listened carefully, reviewing the evidence. When it was time for Martha to speak, she tried to justify her actions, claiming she had been pushed to the edge. Her lack of genuine remorse was evident to everyone in the room. After deliberating, the judge delivered a decisive verdict. Martha was sentenced to 6 months in jail for aggravated assault and ordered to pay $10,000 in damages. While Frank wasn't criminally charged, the judge publicly admonished him for his failure to protect me, calling his behavior deeply disappointing. As I left the courtroom, I felt a weight lift from my shoulders. Justice had been served. Martha and Frank no longer had any power over me, and for the first time in months, I could see a brighter future ahead. With the court case behind me, I finally felt free to rebuild my life on my terms. The house, now legally mine, became more than just a place to live. It was a symbol of everything I had fought for. But it wasn't just about reclaiming material things. It was about reclaiming my dignity, my independence, and my future. My parents were my rock during this time. Their unwavering support reminded me of the love and stability I had been missing for years. They encouraged me to focus on myself, and for the first time in months, I felt safe enough to do so. I threw myself into my consulting business with renewed energy. Work became my outlet, a way to channel my pain into something productive. I started taking on more challenging projects, expanding my client base, and even mentoring younger professionals who were just starting in the industry. The satisfaction of helping others while rebuilding my career gave me a sense of purpose I hadn't felt in a long time. Beyond work, I began to explore opportunities to support women who had experienced abuse. I reached out to local organizations and started volunteering, sharing my story to inspire others. It was empowering to turn my pain into a force for good, and it reminded me that I wasn't alone. So many women had faced similar struggles and found their strength. Frank tried to contact me a few times after the court case, but I blocked him from every avenue. I had no interest in hearing his excuses or dealing with his attempts to manipulate me. Martha's jail sentence was a reminder that actions had consequences, and I hoped it would deter her from hurting anyone else in the future. As the weeks turned into months, I found myself healing physically, emotionally, and mentally. My parents' love, my work, and my newfound purpose gave me the strength to move forward. I wasn't just surviving, I was thriving, building a life defined by my own values and worth. Looking back, it's hard to believe how much my life has changed. The bruises on my head healed within weeks, but the scars on my heart took longer to fade. Despite the pain, every moment of struggle taught me invaluable lessons about my strength, my worth, and the importance of standing up for myself. Reclaiming my independence wasn't just about winning the court case or securing the house. It was about proving to myself that I deserved better. I had endured years of manipulation and betrayal, but I refused to let that define me. Instead, I used those experiences as fuel to rebuild a life where I was in control. My consulting business has flourished in ways I never imagined. With the toxic weight of Frank and Martha gone, I've been able to focus entirely on my goals. I've expanded my services, taken on leadership roles in my field, and even received recognition for my work. Every success feels like a testament to the strength I rediscovered within myself. Beyond my career, I've found purpose in helping others. Sharing my story with women in similar situations has been deeply fulfilling. It reminds me that my journey wasn't just about reclaiming my life. It was about using my experiences to empower others to do the same. Frank and Martha are no longer a part of my world, and I couldn't be more at peace with that. Their attempts to control and hurt me are behind me, and I've ensured they can never harm me again. The house they once tried to use as leverage is now a place of comfort and freedom. As I move forward, I carry the lessons of this chapter in my life with me. I've learned that self-worth isn't negotiable, and that true strength comes from knowing when to walk away. My journey wasn't easy, but it shaped me into the resilient, independent woman I am today. For that, I'm endlessly grateful. My future is mine to write, and this time, I'm in control of every word. Thank you for joining me on Anna's powerful journey of resilience and reclaiming her life. Stories like these remind us of the importance of standing up for ourselves and never settling for less than we deserve. If you enjoyed this story, don't forget to like this video to show your support and inspire others. I'd love to hear your thoughts, so drop a comment below. Did Anna's story resonate with you? What would you have done in her shoes? Let's keep the conversation going. And if you don't want to miss more stories like this, be sure to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell so you're always updated when new content drops. Your support means the world to us, and we're so grateful to have you here. Until next time, stay strong, stay inspired, and take care of yourself. See you in the next story.